It's November 3rd, 2024, Sunday, and I'm with Mr. John J. Jeckovich in Studio 6B. We're going to be reading his book today, titled Their Mother's Sons. Their Mother's Sons. And this is about a book Mr. John J. Jeckovich wrote, over 25 years ago. And it takes him from age 11 to way past his retirement. How long have you been retired for, Mr. Jeckovich?
80 years. I've been retired in 1980.
So you've been retired a hell of a long time. You've been retired a long time. You've been retired almost 45 years.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful life. That's a beautiful life. So Mr. Jeckovich was a World War II veteran in Company H, the 2nd Battalion, the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. This division was respectfully nicknamed, the Diaper Division. Why'd they name it that?
They're all 19, 20 years old.
They're all
33. They're all 33.
33 is a code that represents a teenager military person. And they were referred to as the Diaper Division respectively because they were just young, inexperienced boys out of high school. However, later, 2 or 3 years later, they were nicknamed the Bulge Busters because they all fought and many died and many were seriously injured during the Battle of Bulge. It was a massacre against American soldiers, but that soon changed. That was Adolf Hitler's last-ditch effort to kill Americans. He knew the war was over. He knew that he lost, but it was a scorched earth theory. He was to destroy as many Americans as he possibly could. So the Battle of Bulge was his last-ditch effort. And before the Bulge was over, many Americans died, and Hitler committed suicide. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. Before I start reading, Mr. Jeckovich, what is your dog tag number?
420-965.
Okay, that'll open up the computer so we can start reading your book, which is approximately 900 pages. It's not a 1 or 2 day read. There's a lot of words in that thing. Mr. Jeckovich did an excellent job reading it, and that was back in the days. Mr. Jeckovich never had a computer, nor does he have a computer today, where everything was handwritten, and then he used a word processor to print the book, correct? Okay. This chapter we'll be on today is chapter 20, and it's titled Engaged and Wedding Plans. Engaged in wedding plans. This is where he met his future wife, Delphine Stulak, and they remained married for 69 years. And Delphine Stulak Jeckovich recently passed away in 2020 on August 14th, and in 69 years of marriage. Mrs. Delphine Stulak Jeckovich was 90 years old. And Mr. John J. Jeckovich right now is 99 years old, and he's knocking on the door of 100. It's not easy to do. To get to close to 100 is not easy to do, and getting old is certainly not for wimps. Did you ever think you'd make it to 100, Mr. Jeckovich?
Well, actually, I never thought of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I live day by day.
Well, yes, like you said in your motto. Mr. Jeckovich's motto is yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. Well, you're looking well today.
Oh, thank you.
Brand new clothes, brand new socks, shoes, pants, sweater. You're looking very chipper.
Yeah.
You're very chipper. Mr. Jeckovich never smoked, drank, and he jogged for almost 80 years. And he has 2 doctors, his left leg and his right leg. His left leg and his right leg. And never took a prescription. So there you go. During World War II, there was over 14,400,000 young and courageous young men and women who participated in World War II. And 13,500,000 of those are gone today. There's less than 100,000 left. And Mr. Jeckovich was an infantryman on the front lines during primarily the Battle of Bulge, which was the coldest winter of record in over 30, 40, 50 years. It was unbelievably cold. And Mr. Jeckovich stayed outside most of the time, because if you got yourself in an abandoned house or barn, in most cases, what would happen?
You get zeroed in and get blasted, yeah.
Blown up. And during the Bulge, Mr. Jeckovich was shot in the shoulder by a sniper, and he had a bomb go overhead, which he still has shrapnel in his leg, and his good friend, his right-hand man that worked having a machine gun on that bomb, it blew his head completely off, and the only thing that was hanging was his glasses off of one ear. It wasn't a pretty sight. Mr. Jeckovich gathered up the dog tag and wrote a nice letter to his mother and father. That was just a young boy of 19 years old. 19 years old. But Lape, his name was Donald Lape.
Yeah.
But Lape wasn't street smart, was he?
No, he wasn't street smart.
So what did you have to, you were keeping your eye on him, but what did you always have to tell him? Like, don't stand up and...
I said, don't stand up, and when they shoot, put your arms over your head. And try to seek shelter all the time. Don't stick your head up.
But he wasn't street smart.
Both his parents were lawyers.
So they were book smart.
Yeah.
So by not being street smart and very tough during that war, being a street fighter, most cases you probably didn't make it. Most cases you probably didn't make it. But an interesting story about Donald Lape. He was a young man. He was scared like everybody else. Scared like everybody else. Never seen such killings and murders and torture. But as you fast forward many, many years, Donald Lape's brother lived only 2 blocks from Mr. John J. Jeckovich for 25 years. And we found out after the fact in an obituary, it stated where Donald Lape's brother lived, and it also stated that the acknowledgement to his younger brother, Donald Lape, that perished in night in the World War II.
Yeah.
So it was ironic how we didn't meet up.
Yeah.
And so right now we have less than 7,000 World War II combat veterans, and there's maybe 90,000 more of rear echelon. Rear echelon never seen war, but they had an important job. They brought in the supplies, they did inventory, did everything behind the scenes. There's a lot of behind the scene work in running a war. It's very difficult, very complicated organizing and trying to win a war. So there's less than 7,000 World War II vets, and we're losing them at a rate of 150 a day. So do your math. What do you think? If you have any questions for this highly decorated World War II vet, Purple Heart, 2 Bronze Stars, text us at 407-366-0000. Text Mr. Jeckovich at 407-366-0000. Or as we say on the peaceful, beautiful island of Defusky Island, South Carolina, no cars, very few people, no trouble. This is what we say. Text Mr. Jeckovich at 407-366-0000. 407-366-0000. So we're going to start reading his book, Chapter 20, Engaged and Wedding Plans. But before we do you have any comments about your wife, Delphine Stulak Jeckovich?
Well, she was a lovely person, lovely and kind person.
Never had
I am very fortunate to have her for 69 years.
Very fortunate, very fortunate. And how did her and your mother get along?
Very good. That was the best thing that happened to my mother was Delphine.
Exactly. Because your mother at first is not easy to get along with people.
No.
But once those two hit it off, they were friends to the end. They were friends to the end. There was no There was no misunderstandings there. They were friends to the end, so that was a very nice relationship. That was at 3063 Orleans Avenue in Niagara Falls, New York. And what made the situation even better, Mr. Jeckovich and his bride lived upstairs and his mother lived downstairs. So it was a beautiful situation. They had privacy, yet they were close at all times.
Yeah.
And didn't your wife drive your mother all over the place?
Well, after I learned how to drive, she didn't drive before that. And therefore, was always handy, always available.
So when you got married, your wife was not a driver?
No.
Uh-huh. And how did you teach her? Where did you teach her at?
On the golf course behind Hyde Park.
How'd she learn? Pretty good? It was
the gears pretty close. She was driving, teaching on a Volkswagen.
So that was a
shift out of the floor.
That was a manual transmission.
Yeah.
So she learned on a manual, which was really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so how'd she do when she finally took her road test?
She did good, and then we were going to see my brother in Pennsylvania, and Sally was supposed to drive, but she got sick, and I told Delphi, you're going to have to drive. And so Delphi drove all the way to Pittsburgh.
That's amazing. Sally's Mr. Jeckovich's sister. Mr. Jeckovich had two brothers, Steve Jeckovich and Lucky Jeckovich, and one sister named Sally. Unfortunately, all three are gone. All three are gone. And Mr. Jeckovich, his father died at the age of 43, and his mother made it all the way to 89. So he has got good genes in his family, and maybe that's one of the reasons why he's knocking on the door of 100. Knocking on the door of 100. It's not easy to get there. It is not easy to get there. For example, if you're 40 years old right now, you have a 10% chance of making it to 100. If you're 40 years old right now, you have a 10% chance of making it to 100. But getting old is not for wimps, right, Mr. Jeckovich?
Right.
It's hard.
All right.
Every day is a struggle. Mr. Jeckovich is in perfect health. He could shake your hand and knock you to the ground and read the newspaper without glasses. Never smoked, never drank, never took a prescription, not even a baby aspirin. But for 70 and 80 years of jogging, his knees gave out. His knees blew out. And so when that happens, you're restricted to a wheelchair, right, Mr. Jeckovich?
Right.
And then when that happens, when you're restricted to a wheelchair, everyday life gets a little harder. You need a couple people to take
You're depending on more people.
You need a whole army taking care of you, basically. You need an army. You need a couple people taking you to the bathroom, a couple people taking a shower, cooks around the clock, dressing you. It's everything. Everything in the world is combined. It's not for wimps getting old. And a lot of people, what will happen is they'll outlive their money. They'll outlive their money. For example, if you're getting ready to retire in your early 60s and you say, well, I got my house paid for and I have $1 million in the bank, and I would say, I would not want to be you. I would not want to be you. Because not only is getting old hard, it's super expensive. Everyone looks at you like a human cash register. Every time you turn around, you're a human cash register. 1,000 this morning, 10,000 this afternoon. The list is long. So if you're getting ready to retire and say, oh wow, I paid off my house, I have $1 million in the bank, I say again, I would not want to be you, because what will happen is you'll outlive your money. Say, for example, if you need, you're mentally fine, but you want to stay at home and your knees gave out, you'll need 2 or 3 people around the clock, 3 different shifts, and a labor alone would cost you about $40,000 a month. And so figure it out. You retire with $1 million, $40,000 a month is $500,000 a year. So in 2 years, you're broke. So 2 years, you're broke. So you might want to rethink what you're saying about your retirement. Also, you have an alternative, assisted living. Assisted living is certainly not at home, but for a decent one, for something that's decent and livable, they'll run you between $9,000 to $12,000 a month, and that's each and every month. So how long will your money last? How long will your money last? And then you might have the brilliant idea when you retire, oh well, I have sons and daughters. What happens then?
Nothing.
They hide.
Yeah.
When you're with your family and you're going camping and you're going to parties and you're going to church and everyone's in good health, it's beautiful. The world is great. Everything's going extremely smooth. Everything's going extremely smooth. And then you think, well, I have this family to rely on. But what happens now is simply this. It involves time from relatives and money. Time and money from relatives. And what they'll do is they'll abandon you like a rat on a sinking ship. They'll abandon you like a rat on a sinking ship. That's what your family will do. So don't count on your family, because 90% of the time it won't happen. They'll find 1,000,001 excuses why they can't do this today, they can't do that today, and eventually they'll disappear altogether. They'll be like a rat abandoning a sinking ship. So keep in mind, minutes?
13.
So keep in mind, that's not an option. That is not an option. And then you'll later find out, unfortunately, the most poisonous people on earth, come disguised as family. Because what you thought you could count on, they don't do jack shit. They don't do jack shit. So that gives younger people, maybe in their 40s, something to think about, plan for, because you certainly don't want to outlive your money. This is 2024. Could you imagine if you're 40 now, what it'd be like, how expensive it'd be like to retire 25 years from now? Probably double what we have now. Probably double. So it's something for younger people to think about. Something for younger people to think about. So, here we go. I'm going to start on chapter 20, Engaged in Wedding Plans. The next day I called Delphine. She had been waiting for my call since she got home from work. Her voice sounded cheerful, and that bolstered me somewhat, as I was still reeling from my mother I received from last night. Complaint from mothers. So if you came home late at night, your mother would really give it to you.
Yeah.
She didn't like that. Even though your other brothers are coming home a lot later.
And
what happened then?
Nothing.
Nothing. There you go. I've got some tickets for the stage at Erlanger. Erlanger is like a big
theater,
big
Buffalo, yeah.
On Wednesday. What do you think? I asked, anticipating her answer. I won't see you tomorrow, she asked, disappointedly. No, I'll tell you about it when I see you on Wednesday. I said, knowing that I had piqued her curiosity. Meet me at the store at 5. What store was that?
Grant, W.T. Grant's.
That's where Delphine worked?
Yeah.
With two of her girlfriends?
Agnes and Rosalie, yeah.
Okay. She informed me, a little uncertainty creeping into her voice. I'll call you tonight, and I responded briskly, trying to quell the doubt and vagueness I knew she must have sensed. Oh, the title of this play is Death of the Salesman. Did you ever go see Death of the Salesman?
Who? Yeah, I saw Death of the Salesman.
Is that with Delphine?
Yeah, that was a big play, yeah.
And they're still playing that today.
Yeah, it was playing yesterday?
They're playing that today, during 2024, and they're probably playing that before you were born.
Oh, yeah.
That's a classic. So bring a large handkerchief, I informed her. You told Delphine when we go see the Death of the Salesman for her to bring a large handkerchief. Tears. All right, she said, going along with any attempt at humor and reinforced somewhat by it. That night, minutes please? That night, she said, going along with my attempt at humor, reinforced somewhat by it. That night at work, I thought about what I would tell Delphine about my family life.
9 minutes.
And I felt I had to tell her some aspects of it to make her aware of my condition. What was your condition?
My condition?
Of her family life, you want to tell her.
Well, my mother depended on me.
Okay, so that's when you're going to break the news, right?
Yeah.
And then yeah. Your mother depended on you from age 11 to the time she passed away, which was wonderful. I did not want to lose her, and I thought the surest way to be to keep my family life separate from our relationship. Separate from our relationship. How and what to tell her would be a problem, as there's always a chance I could lose her by what I had to say to her. Mother was not talking to me. So your mother had silence a lot, right?
Yeah.
Your mother would have silence with your...
Get the silent treatment, yeah.
Your mother would give your father silent treatment?
Yeah.
And then later, when he passed away, she gave you silent treatment?
Yeah.
Okay. Silent treatment. That's bad. That's hard. Okay, let's see where the hell we are. Naturally, mother was still not talking to me. Instead of lashing out at me, she was aloof and sullen. Naturally, Sally followed her lead and stayed clear of me, saying nothing to me. Looky said something, but since he did not confide in Mother or Sally, he stayed completely out of the fray. So Looky never bothered to go one way or the other.
No.
He just didn't.
Well, he's never home.
Never home. Where was he?
Well, he had buddies and friends. Well, we worked at the bowling alley, met the wrong people.
So he got into the wrong crowd. And what would he do? He start going to bars?
Well, he got drunk, got home, got drunk, and everything else.
Wow. And what did your mother say to him when he came home drunk?
Well, she told me, so before you go to school, you better clean that house mess that Looky made last night. I have to clean it up.
Well, what kind of mess did Looky
Well, he
make?
threw up and everything.
All over?
Yeah.
And your mother didn't make Looky pick it up, she made you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how and what to tell her would be the problem, as there was always a chance I could lose her by what I had to say. Mother was still not talking to me, instead of lashing out at me, as she was aloof and sullen. Naturally, Sally would follow her lead and stay clear of me. I presumed, so if I did not seek him out as an ally, he would only sneer. Look, he sneered a lot?
Huh?
Look, he sneered a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how would he do it?
Well, yeah.
So he didn't really care.
Yeah.
And go about his carefree way, impervious to Mother's irritability, and directed at me. I called Delphine the next night, the night I would normally see her, and as we talked, I could feel she was disturbed by my not seeing her at that night. She did not mention it or make reference to it, but I got the definite impression that it was making her feel uncertain regarding our relationship, or worse yet, an imminent breakup was forthcoming. I knew I could not dissuade her from that belief over the phone as we talked. Instead, I discussed the play we would be seeing the next night. It pained me to close our phone conversation on an uncertain note, but I thought it was best not to delve into it at this time. That afternoon, when I was to pick up Mother from work, she still would not get into the car. Okay, so now you drove all the way where your mother worked, which was Carbrundum.
Yeah.
You drove all the way there to pick her up, and what did she do?
She walked beside me, she wouldn't get in.
She wouldn't get in?
Yeah.
So instead of getting a ride several miles,
Yeah.
was this winter or summer?
Winter.
Instead of getting
I
a
was
ride,
afraid she was going to slip.
yeah, slip easily. Instead of getting a ride during the snow in the winter, she just walked right past you.
Yeah.
She was very stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, very stubborn. Okay, let's see. That afternoon, I went to pick up Mother from work, and she still would not get into the car. Or still, she walked all the way home, much of the way with my frustration. I did not know how I was going to maneuver the situation that night when I was to meet Delphine. I thought it reprehensible and that I should be the subject of such treatment. Why should I put into the position of defending or justifying my actions when there was no real cause for it? I knew what I was doing was not wrong, and it was only Mother's apprehension and fear that was driving her to despair and to the reality that if I left, she would ultimately be alone for the rest of her days. I understand her angst, but certainly I should have my own life and not be deprived of it on account of an obsessive fear for being alone. I decided against approaching Mother and stated that I was going out. Minutes, please. Instead, I would just leave to see Delphine. I did not want to make a fuss about it, knowing full Mother would be once again at the vent of her outrage.
4 minutes.
Outrage. And if gave me her an opportunity, as it was, I did not want to profoundly affect me when I saw Delphine that night. I realized how critical our meeting was, and I wanted to have a proper frame of mind when I tried to explain my situation. I still was not clear as how far I would go with my explanation, or even Delphine would fully understand the implications.
Yeah.
Again, walking around Mom. So let me just try to figure this out. So your mother was very stubborn, and she was always saying something if you got in after late. But the worry was actually for nothing, because when your mother finally met Delphine, tell us how that story went.
Oh, that went great. That was the best thing for my mother.
How'd the story go? What'd your mother say to you when you both came?
Well, I brought Delphine finally. I talked to Delphine in the course. You gotta be my mother. That was a Sunday afternoon. So we drove around a couple of blocks more, and she got the courage. I said, okay, we'll go in now. So we went out, and the first thing my mother says, you get in the kitchen and face those cupboards up. I'll take care of this young lady.
I like that.
Yeah.
So your mother didn't want to speak to both of you.
Yeah.
She wanted to speak to Delphine.
Now, see,
alone.
somebody else, Delphine, instead of Delphine, they'd walk out. Delphine.
That's a good point.
Delphine says, okay, let's go, let's leave John alone. Let's have a little talk in the other room.
That's a very good point. Another lady might have said, I'm not getting involved.
Yeah, walk out.
So when you came into your house for the first time, your mother said, you go back to the kitchen remodeling. You're doing a project, right?
Yeah.
And she says, I'll take care of Delphine.
Yeah.
And then they went and sit in the living room.
Yeah.
And they hit it off just right.
Oh, very great, yeah.
And thereafter, for 50 years, it was perfect.
Yeah, they're mutual, yeah.
Well, minutes, please. That's a great story how that turned out. But I didn't think about that. You're right. If your mother would have said that to another lady, she might have just said, I'm gone. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Minute 30.
I'm not gonna do that. Wow. So how long did your mother talk to Delphine the first time?
First time?
Yeah.
They took, I was working in the kitchen with the covers, and she took her in the living room and was talking to her. They were talking to her.
How long?
And then she says, Delphine, I'll make some tea or coffee and that. She said, we'll have a little snack. And Delphine says, okay, thank you, Bob. And
that was it?
and my mother was surprised at that because she didn't think she would say that.
So they hit it off right. And besides, your mother has good sense of people, and she knew Delphine was a wholesome person.
Yeah.
She knew that.
Well, they were mutual friends for the rest of their lives.
She knew that. Minutes?
50 seconds.
Well, that was a great beginning, and it ended very nicely, too. And then weren't you, Delphine and your mother, did they go shopping every Friday?
Oh, yeah, well, she monopolized on her because Delphine was driving now.
And where else did they go together?
Yeah, well, they went to church, they went shopping, and then they went as far as Buffalo and Kenmore sometimes in the wintertime. I said, you guys are driving too far in the wintertime.
With all that snow.
With all that snow, yeah.
Bad winters there. And then they also go to Canada?
They went to Canada because they said, my mother thought the meat was better over there.
Do you think it was?
No.
No.
8 seconds.
Wow. That's a great beginning. That's a great beginning.